one is the process called as clustering. So the clustering is going to divide the data into different groups. Once the data is formed into different groups according to the attributes of the particular object, and once they have formed clusters, it is very easy to analyze the data. So today we are the topic learning outcomes of today's class. We are going to understand at the end of the session, you people need to understand what is clustering, recognize the importance of clustering in data mining, and compare different types of data and different clustering methods. What we are going to see in brief, and in the coming classes we are going to discuss about these clustering methods in detail. What is the importance of this clustering in each and every class? So if you look into the figure which is available here, you can look into the different objects or images. In a single image, we have different objects which have been mentioned. So here, what I'm going to explain is that we are going to group these people according to their natural similarity. According to their naturality, we need to group them. So in order to group these objects, here I am using one technique. That technique is going to be called as the clustering technique. So before going to enter into the technicalities of this clustering concept, I'm going to explain you in general how the clustering will be done. So as we have different images here, I am trying to group these things into different clusters. So if you look into this figure, we have 9 images which have been available here. So you may have doubt that how the images, the objects existing in the images are being grouped into different clusters. The object means here, one important thing need to observe is that if you look into the image, what is being available there, we need to analyze in the perspective of a subject. So that's why we are calling clustering is a subjective. So basing on the subjective, we need to understand the subject by looking into the different objects available in the images. The data, the objects are being grouped. So if you look into the first image which is been available here at the bottom left, Simpson family. So the first cluster, what I have done is that according to the similarity of the objects, I have given a name called as Simpson family as the cluster, one of the cluster. Okay, so here we have the 5 members available in the Simpson family. And next, if you look into another cluster, we have the school employees cluster, where here 4 of the employees of that particular school are being available here. And the next one is that I have divided the cluster basing on the gender ratio, where the number of female objects available in the image and the number of male objects available in the image. So this is one way of clustering. Means the grouping of the objects according to their similarity. So if you look this image generally, so the basic, very fundamental, for everyone minds it comes into is that the image is being divided into 2 groups: the males, females, Simpson family, and school employees.
Praveen sir,
Sir,
full screen better na?
sir, the problem with the full screen is that, sir, I have a audio embedded in that one.
Okay,
If I make it full screen, I am getting the resound of that one.
okay, okay.
For today's class, I'll go in this fashion. Next, if you look into the next image, what is similarity? So earlier we have seen one image. Here we are looking into another image where the image were consisting of human and the animal. So if you look into the 2 different objects which are available in this image, we could have only very limited amount of similarity what is being seen. The first one is the texture of these 2 images is in common, and the next common thing what we can observe is that the eyes of the 2 different images is common. This is the only these are the only 2 similarities what could I observe, but basing on these 2 similarities we cannot implement the clustering. So what is the similarity? In brief, the similarity is defined as the quality or state of being similar, likeliness, resemblance, as a similarity of features. So we need to have the features of these two images need to be more in common and more likeliness among these two images. So in this similarity is hard to define in these two images. Next. So here, what we could observe is that the two images what are from this particular slide, we need to find the similarity distance between these two images. The similarity distance between these two images can be calculated basing on, let O1 and O2 be the two objects what are being seen here from the universe of possible objects. So the distance, dissimilarity between O1 and O2 is the real number denoted by D of O1 comma O2 is the way how we can define the distance measure, and we are going to discuss about this dissimilarity and the similarity of these images, objects in a particular cluster in detail in the coming class. So the other one what I have given you an example, the gene expression clustering. So if you look into this particular image, the different genes of a particular person or animal, right? So if you look into the right side, basing on the different colors, the genes are being clustered at a common area. This is another example. And next, a small illustration. This data set has 4 natural clusters. If you look into the objects which are being available here in this particular figure, right? So once we are going to implement a clustering on this one, or once we apply a clustering algorithm on this particular objects in the sense, if you look into this one here, it is going to be called as a data set. It is going to be called as a data set. It is a data set and it is a data set. So this data set has different kind of objects. This one has different objects, this has different objects, and this has different objects. So once we apply a clustering technique on this one, the figure is going to be seen in this particular fashion. So upon applying the clustering technique on this particular data set, the data is going to be formed in the form of 4 natural clusters. So once the data available in the different data sets has been formed into a proper natural cluster, then it is very easy to apply different data mining algorithms to extract the knowledge or features of these particular clusters, depending on the requirement from a person to person or from an organization to an organization. Next. So what is a cluster? Cluster is a group of objects that belongs to the same class. In other words, similar objects are grouped in one cluster and dissimilar objects are grouped in another cluster. So the objects which belongs to the same class, or the objects which has the similar properties, resemblance, likeliness, they are going to form into a common group which is going to be called as a cluster. And the other way we can define the cluster is that similar objects are grouped in one cluster and dissimilar objects, even though if not the similar objects are grouped into one cluster, one group, we are going to call it as a cluster. The other way of defining is that dissimilar objects are grouped into another cluster. This is another way of defining the cluster. So once we group the dissimilar objects also into one group, then we can say it is also a form of cluster. So we have seen the definition of a cluster. So next, what is clustering? Clustering is the process of making a group of abstract objects into class of similar objects. So cluster is one thing, and the clustering is the process. It is the process of making a group of abstract objects into class of similar objects. So here we have a cluster of data objects can be treated as one group. While doing clustering analysis, we first partition the set of data into groups based on data similarity and then assign the labels to the groups. The main advantage of clustering over classification is that it is adaptable to changes and helps single out useful features that distinguish different groups. So let me give you a simple example here. This clustering is a kind of technique which will fall under unsupervised learning. Prior to this one, in the third unit, we have gone through the classification. Third and fourth unit, we have come across the classification, which will fall under the supervised learning. So, whereas for the supervised learning, we have the predefined classes, whereas for the clustering, we don't have the predefined set of classes which are need to be observed. So, one more interesting example I want to convey where you can understand it very easily. You people will be looking after the cricket matches. Most of our Indians will come across, right? So the cricket is being divided into three segments. If you treat the cricket as a big cluster, the database of a cricket as a cluster, then here it is in turn divided into three subclusters. The one cluster talks about the one-day international matches, the other one talks about the test matches, and the other one talks about the T20 matches. Where the information related or the entire data what is related to one-day international is being kept in one database, which is going to be called as the one-day international database, or the cluster we can say. The other one is the information related to the test matches, and the other one related to the T20. So one important point I want to convey you here is that when the cluster is being divided into these three segments, the cricket cluster is being divided into these three segments, the data available in these individual clusters and the objects which are available in one day international cluster is going to have the maximum intra distance similarity. The intra distance similarity between the cluster is more in the individual clusters, and the similarity distance between the individual one day international and test international cricket is very less. Means once the data is being divided into individual clusters, then within the cluster the intra similarity will be more, means maximum, and the inter similarity distance between the two clusters is going to be different. Next, moving on to the next slide. So we have seen what is a cluster and the cluster analysis. So grouping a set of data objects into clusters. So clustering is unsupervised classification where we don't have any predefined classes, what we have just discussed. So the typical applications of this clustering will fall under as a stand-alone tool to get insight into data distribution. So with the help of this tool, we can have insight into the data distribution, in the sense how well the data is going to be organized in a database. So the well the data is being organized, the easy we can extract the useful information from that particular data base, depending on the type of application we are using. That is the meaning of that one. Next, understanding hidden data structure in data. So how the data is going to be structured in the database, because in the database in turn we are going to have the hidden objects and the hidden structures which are being available, because the object of one particular data is going to relate to some other subject in that one, where it may lead to some small kind of small cluster or a small kind of data we can say, because within the cluster also we can have different subclusters, sub-subclusters kind of. Next, as a pre-processing step for other algorithms, for further analysis. So the clustering technique is the pre-processing step for other algorithms here we are mentioning, because if you look into the KDD process, uh, where we have the different data mining steps starting from the data cleaning, uh, data pre-processing, transformation, etc., etc. So here in this one, the pre-processing step, why we are calling it as a pre-processing step? So in order to implement the clustering technique, if you want to implement the algorithms on the data, in order to extract the knowledge from the database, we need to pre-process the data. So pre-processing in the sense, if you look into the data cleaning operations, will be removing the unnecessary values available in the data. The duplicates of the data can be removed from the data set. So normalization of the data will be done. Redundancy can be removed. So once this process is done, we have the technique called as the clustering. So once the data is being cleaned, then the data is going to be divided into groups, because simply we cannot apply the algorithms what we have studied or what we are going to study on the data set, until and unless we segregate the data into different groups where each group is going to be called as a cluster. So once the data is being divided into clusters, it is very easy to apply the data mining algorithms to extract the features. So that's why we are saying the clustering is the first and foremost step in the process of applying the data mining algorithms. So the general applications of clustering, if you look into the pattern recognition, so you know the meaning of the patterns, different data patterns which have been available on the data set, and understanding the similarity between the different patterns is the one point. Next, the spatial data analysis. So if you look into the spatial data analysis, the more generalized example what we can have is that the name itself reveals spatial, the data related to the space is the spatial data, and if we perform some analysis on that particular data, we are calling it as a spatial data analysis. And in order to implement this one, we are having a very good technique called as the spatial data mining. Is a separate field where spatial data mining techniques are going to be applied across the spatial data. So the best example for this one is in the last year we have come across the Chandrayaan launch, where we have sent a rover, the Vikram lander, onto the space, and we couldn't place it in the orbit, even though we have succeeded to 99%, but we couldn't place it into the specified orbit. But once it is being placed into a particular orbit, the scientists started analyzing the spatial data, day-to-day spatial data. The best way, if they can reset and place it into the specified orbit. So the entire data, what is being related to that particular spatial data, which in particular to that particular application, the Chandrayaan application is going to be placed in one cluster, and a lot of analysis is being done, and they could draw some conclusions saying that in the coming year, once again, they are going to place, they are going to come up with the Chandrayaan-2, where they are confident of placing that particular rover into the specified orbit, where they could come to this conclusion basing on the spatial data, because they have applied the clustering technique into that particular application. Next, image processing. So image processing, if you look into this image processing, the very first two examples what we have come across, identifying the objects in the different images and arranging them into a particular fashion, whether the similar kind of objects need to be placed in one group, or the dissimilar objects going to be placed in another group, and drawing some conclusions basing on that one, which is going to be called as the image processing. So image processing is also a field of study for data mining. Next, economic science, especially the market research, economic science. So what do you mean by this market research? Studying the market, the situations of the market, because as if you look into the current situation because of the COVID-19, we are coming across a lot of the economic crisis which is going on, where a lot of market research is going on, that the number of shares are going to be fallen, the different companies are making lockouts. So I'm going to say here is that they can come to a conclusion basing on the amount of research what they'll do on that particular data. They can do that analysis only when the data is being clustered into a particular group. The next application is the World Wide Web, where we have the document classification and cluster weblog data to discover a group of similar access patterns. Next, the examples of the clustering applications are marketing, help marketers discover distinct groups in their customer bases, and then use this knowledge to develop targeted marketing programs. So we are talking about the marketing, help marketers to discover distinct groups. So what do you mean by these distinct groups? So if we start studying the market, then we'll come across the various conclusions saying that if you look into an example of the automobile industry, people will come across the different kinds of automobiles. One might be interested in one kind of brand, the other might be interested in another brand. Or the more generalized one is that where the new iPhone SE2 or the iPhone 9 is going to be launched in the coming months. So how many of the customers are very eager to look into that one? So basing on that one, the surfing or the searching of the data is being done. That data is going to be actually accumulated by the database, the search engines, and the data is going to be placed into one cluster. And once any kind of new update comes in that particular product or the object, then the alerts to the customers are being sent. This is nothing but the study of the market, and basing on the customer's interest, and the knowledge is going to be extracted, and the new kind of programs are being targeted. Next, land use, identification of areas of similar land use in an Earth observation database. So this is a very simple example. If you look into this one, identification of areas of similar land use. Similar land use in the sense the land is, for example, it has been divided into certain categories: the agricultural land, the commercial land, the household lands, and the land consisting of more amount of water, etc., etc. So the identification of the amount of agriculture is being done in India. What are the various places where more amount of paddy is being grown, or the other kind of spices, pulses are being generated, and the amount of forest area available on this particular land. If you look into our country, which state has the maximum amount of forest area available? So in order to identify these things, then once again we are going to make use of the clustering technique, where the data is going to be accumulated into a particular database. Next, insurance, identifying the group of motor insurance policy holders with a high average claim cost. This one is a very general one, where most of we people have the two-wheeler and four-wheeler insurances, where who has claimed more amount of more money from basing on the problem what that particular customer has been faced, right? So the data is going to be grouped into one thing, or the amount of customers a particular motor insurance company, General Motor Insurance, Bharati AXA, Royal Sundaram, etc., etc., or Star Health Insurance, different groups it is going to be formed, and the people who are seeking the services of a particular insurance company are going to form under one cluster. The people into another company in another cluster, and another into another cluster. But as an overall, all these small clusters is going to form a big cluster called as the motor insurance policyholders cluster, right? Where in this one we have the different types of subclusters. Next, city planning, identifying group of houses according to their house type, value, and geographical location. So the city is going to be planned basing on the clustering, or it is being identified where we can have more number of apartments, more number of individual houses, so villas, and what is the cost of the value of that particular house, villa, or a flat in that particular area, and where exactly the location is being available. Next, earthquake studies, observed earthquakes, epicenters should be clustered along continental faults. So with the help of this clustering, means basically they'll group the more strategic way that what are the main centers, epic centers where there is a chances of occurring of earthquakes, and they are going to make study on that one with the help of the clustering algorithms, and they are going to come out with some conclusion saying that this is the possibility where the more chances of occurring of earthquakes is there. So hope you have understood the examples of the clustering applications. Students, if you have any kind of doubt at the end of the session, I'm going to give you some 5 to 10 minutes of time where we can have the doubt clearance, question and answers, or discussion session. Next, requirements of clustering in data mining. So why clustering is required in data mining? So the first thing is the scalability, where we need high scalable clustering algorithms to deal with large databases. So why clustering is needed? Because the clustering is needed as we have the day-to-day, the data is being generated from various applications, and the data is going to be stored in the databases. And as the data is becoming huge and huge on daily basis, it is not that easy to analyze the data. And not only that, we are analyzing yesterday data, last week data, or last month data. The analysis part, what we are going to implement here is on the historical data. So if you look into the historical data is going to be very complex and it is very huge. So it is not that easy to simply analyze the data and draw some conclusions and extract some information which is not the qualitative one and which is not useful for any of us. So to overcome that, here we are going to make use of the scalability, where we have high scalable clustering algorithm. Scalable in the sense highly measurable clustering algorithm, where we can see whether the quality of the data what is being retrieved is correct or not, or to what extent the clusters are being formed, whether they are the qualitative clusters or not. Next, ability to deal with different kinds of attributes. So algorithms should be capable to be applied on any kind of data such as interval-based, numerical data, categorical, and binary data. So if you look into this one, it should have an ability to deal with the different kinds of attributes. The data might be existing in the binary form, it might be in the form of categorical data or the interval-based data, irrespective of that one. Here, the algorithms should be capable in analyzing the data. It is not that only if the data existing in the form of binary form, the algorithm is going to function, which is of no use. Discovery of clusters with attribute shape. So irrespective of the shapes available, whether the data, you see here, if you look into, just we have seen an example of the land usage. If you look into this one, the land use, identification of areas of similar land used in an earth observation database. So if you look into that one, the land, the agriculture area is being distributed overall, where in one place it might be look in the form of a rectangle, in one place it might look in the form of a square, and in another place it might look in the form of shapeless also. So irrespective of the shape, the data is being existing. Here, the clustering algorithm should be capable of detecting clusters of arbitrary shapes, irrespective of any specific shape. Next, high dimensionality. The clustering algorithm should not only be able to handle low dimensional data, but also the high dimensional space. So irrespective whether the algorithms can access or draw a conclusion only with the help of single dimension or two-dimensional, which is of no use, because from the first point, if you look into the high scalable clustering algorithms to deal with larger databases. So when we talk about the concept of the larger databases, then by default, it is nothing but the data is existing in the form of with multiple dimensions in the multi-dimensional space consisting of n number of attributes. So when n number of attributes occur, in order to segregate the data, we'll be making use of the clustering algorithm, and the clustering algorithm should be so keen that it should be able not only to able to handle low dimensional data but also the high dimensional space. Next, ability to deal with noisy data. So databases contains noisy, missing or erroneous data. So we have discussed about this one few minutes back, right? Because the noisy data, erroneous data, what is been available, we are going to remove in the process of the data cleaning process. So once the data cleaning is being done, then the data is going to be formed into clusters. So if you are not going to remove those noisy and erroneous data or the missing values, then the clusters what we are going to form are going to be the data what is been existing is the poor data, and if the data is poor, then the clusters what are going to form are the poor quality clusters. So once we have the poor quality clusters, then it is very difficult to draw the conclusions, and it is going to be a waste process of forming the clusters also. Next, interpretability. The clustering result should be interpretable, comprehensible, and usable. So once we draw the conclusions from the clusters, the data should be easily understandable, and it should be capable of using and comprehensible. Next. So what is good clustering? A good clustering method will produce high quality clusters with high intra-class similarity and low inter-class similarity. So you people know the meaning of the intra-class and inter-class, as you people have well studied the computer network concept, where we have come across internet and intra-networking. So when you talk about the intranet within a small network, or if you take an example of our lab or something, where a group of systems are which have been connected, which is going to form as an intra-class, where they have the high similarity, that's why they have been placed in a common group. And the next one is the low inter-class similarity, which will fall into different classes, right? So the objects which have been available in one group with the common attributes, they should have high intra-class similarity and low inter-class similarity. Next. So types of data in clustering analysis. So what type of data will exist in clustering analysis? We are keep on talking about the clustering, but on what type of data we are going to implement the clustering technique, so as what the data is going to be formed into different groups. So here we are going to have the similarity and dissimilarity between the objects. So distances are measured, used to measure the similarity or dissimilarity between the two different objects. So we have the four different types of variables which we are going to draw conclusions from this one. The first one is the binary variables, the nominal variables, ordinal variables, the ratio, and the scale variables. So you know the meaning of the binary variables, where we can draw the conclusions either in the form of yes or no fashion, 0, 1 fashion, true or false fashion. either this one or that one exists. So here the types of data in the clustering analysis, if you look into this one, the nominal data we have from, just have a look into this figure from the bottom up, where we have the nominal data at the bottom, followed by the ordinal data, interval data, and ratio data. So we are going to discuss about these data in more detail in the coming slide. So the types of data in clustering analysis. The nominal. A nominal scale describes a variable with categories that do not have a natural order or ranking. You can code nominal variables with numbers if you want, but the order is arbitrary and any calculation such as computing a mean, median, or standard deviation would be meaningless. So if you look into the examples of this one, the nominal variables what include are the genotype, the blood group type, the zip code, the gender, the race, the eye color, the political party. If you look into this one, so we cannot have any relationship between the different kinds of variables available here, and we cannot calculate any mean, median, or standard deviation for this particular variable. Even though if you want to draw some conclusions in the form of calculating some mean, median, there is no meaning in the calculation of that particular value. Next, ordinal. An ordinal scale is one where the order matters but not the difference between values. So irrespective of what the difference exists, whether it is the small difference or the large difference, but which don't have any meaning in this one, but only thing is the order is must in the ordinal variables. So examples of the ordinal variables include the socio-economic status, where we have the low income, middle income, and high income. If you look into these three variables, the low income variables, middle income variables, and high income variables, we can draw a conclusion saying that it relates to the socio-economic status, but we cannot draw the difference between how much is the low and how much is the middle and how much is the high. We cannot draw any conclusions for this one. In the similar way, education level, high school, BS, MS, PhD, and the other one is the income level, where we have the less than 50,000, 50,000 to 100,000, and over 100,000. Next, the satisfaction rating, extremely dislike, neutral, like, and extremely like. So this is another one. Next, the types of the interval. An interval scale is one where there is order and the difference between two values is meaningful. The interval scale is one where there is order and the difference between two values is meaningful. Earlier we have seen the interval between the two values, but the difference between the two values is meaningless. But here there should be some meaning between the two different values which have been available here. So example of interval variables include the calculation of the temperature in the form of Fahrenheit or the Celsius, where generally we'll look into the temperature in our daily news or in our television, right? What is the minimum temperature in Hyderabad today and maximum temperature in Hyderabad today? So if you look into these two values, we could come to a conclusion saying that there is some meaningful information available here, and we can draw some conclusions from this particular variables, which are nothing but intervals. Interval is nothing but the time. At morning 9 o'clock, what is the temperature, and in the evening 5 o'clock, what is the temperature? Or in the morning, what is the temperature? So at the midday, around 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, what is the temperature? And in the evening, what is the temperature? And the next is the ratio variable. The ratio variable has all the properties of an interval variable and also has a clear definition of where the variable equals 0.0, there is none of that variable. So if you look into the example, enzyme activity, dose amount, reaction rate, flow rate, concentration, pulse, weight, length, temperature in Kelvin. So This is about the ratio where in coming classes, when we are going to start with the clustering algorithms in detail, then we'll talk about these types of variables in detail, how we are applying and where we are going to apply these things. So moving on to the next slide. So the categorization of the clustering methods. So the clustering methods are being divided into different categories. The first one among them is the partition algorithm. So if you look into this one, aspects of clustering, a clustering algorithm such as partitional clustering, where the k-means will fall under the category of the partitional clustering, where the group of data or the data is going to be divided into k different clusters, and the difference between these clusters is going to be calculated. Interclass distances, intra-cluster distances is going to be calculated, and we are going to draw some conclusions from that one. Next, what we have is the hierarchical clustering. Hierarchical clustering is arranging the data in the form of hierarchy, whether it might be from top to bottom or from in the form of bottom up arrangement of the data. So we can start from the leaf nodes and we can reach the root node with the help of the bottom-up clustering, where we have more number of objects taken into consideration and drawing some conclusions to form the subcluster next, and we are going to form a root over there. And next, what we have is the top-down fashion, where we can consider the top root cluster, and we are going to draw some conclusions by dividing it into sub-clusters, etc. Next, the mixture of the Gaussians, where we are going to come across different models of density-based methods. We are going to see in this one. And the next one is the distance of similarity measure, such as Euclidean distance, Minkowski, or cosine. So we are going to find the similarity between the distance between the different clusters, the clusters. If suppose x1, x2, x3 till xn, we have the different objects available, data available, x1 to xn, and suppose if we have divided them into particular clusters, the C1 cluster going to consist of x1, x2, x3, C2 consists of x4, x5, x6, and C3 consists of x7, x8, x9. So these clusters C1, C2, C3, what is the similarity between the objects available in one cluster, and what is the similarity between the objects available in two different clusters? Is nothing but the distance or the similarity function. Next, the quality of the cluster will improve only when the inter-cluster distance is maximized. So the inter-cluster distance should be maximum and intra-cluster distance should be minimum. Then only we can say that the quality clusters are being created. Okay, so what is this inter-cluster, intra-cluster? As we have already discussed, so once we start minimizing the clusters distance between these two things, then we can have a good quality of clusters. So at last we can conclude saying that the quality of a clustering result depends on the algorithm, the distance function, and the applications. We cannot draw a conclusion saying that each and every cluster is going to have the similar kind of quality. It depends only on the quality of the clustering result, depends on the algorithm, what is being applied, the distance function, and the application. So with this, I'm going to conclude today's class. Dear students, if you have any kind of doubts, please you can raise and we can have.